This whole really successful multi-million dollar a year practice was built almost entirely because of YouTube, right? Like that's why he's a market leader. And so it's really funny that people don't want money, but for whatever reason, that's the one issue that I see for people to have that are afraid. So if you're in a sector where you think it doesn't make sense to be on YouTube, it may only not make sense right now because nobody has done it. And that is more of a reason why you should do it than to not.
So you finally decided to start that YouTube channel, but you have no idea where to start. The strategy behind it, the topics you want to cover. We've all been there for sure. But this is why I brought on today's guest, Ben Leavitt, creator and founder of Bunny Media, a content agency helping SaaS companies, consultants, online educators, high-ticket service providers, and podcasts to earn more views and money through YouTube podcasts. Today, we're chatting with Ben about the strategies for launching that YouTube channel so we can grow our personal brands. So Ben, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it, Dave. I'm happy to chop it up, talk some YouTube. And I know this is the perfect time of year for everyone. So hopefully we can convince some people to win on YouTube and get started.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this podcast is coming out early in the year, January. Everyone's got that spark in them about the 100 things that they want to accomplish this year. And largely with entrepreneurs, personal brands, YouTube is the top of the list. So really want to dive into the strategies behind what should we be thinking about, topics to cover, equipment to use, like how do we even, what's the process there for recording, all that good stuff. But let's first learn a little bit more about you. So I mentioned you're the founder of Bunny Media. Kind of walk us through, who are you, what do you do, who you do it for?
For sure. So I'm a creator myself. I've been creating content for 7 or 8 years at this point. So I was earlier than most, but not as early as I should have been. And I started creating content while I was in university. And I was a college football player at the time. And I always wanted to be an entrepreneur after the fact, but injuries made me retire earlier than I wanted to. And so I just kind of fast forwarded the whole plan and figured this is probably my push to finally get on YouTube, build a business, do all those things. And through doing that, I found that I applied the same sort of dedication and excitement that I did to sports, to social media. And I loved the fact that you could basically figure out a way to do things to get the results that you wanted. I loved having that kind of control over things. And through doing that, I grew my own YouTube channel to over 100K subscribers at this point, talking all about the stuff that I was doing within the business that I had started, which was a marketing agency. And we used to work so hard doing like short form content, ads, all these different things. And then we found that we were getting such crazy results for businesses when they let us do their YouTube channels. And so eventually just light bulb was just too bright for me to ignore it anymore. I realized that I should double down on this, become that guy, and go where the money is, because that's the biggest thing that I always preach to clients is that you can't look at YouTube views like you do other platforms because they're just not the same at all. The conversion kind of metrics are off the charts if you're used to short form traffic, and it just kind of lends to higher ticket purchases as well. I thought about my own experiences where I went and spent money and why I made big purchases. It was always YouTube every single time, whether I bought a new camera, and I even picked my surgeon based on YouTube. So that really like solidified the whole concept to me. And that's why I tell these stories on every sales call that we have, because it's just real.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's kind of part of the buying process, right? We go to Google, we'll read some articles, here and there, but at the end of the day, we just want to be like spoken to about and shown the review, right? The unboxing of the product and how it demonstrate, right? So let's get into all that in a little bit. So the YouTube, who is YouTube right for? Is there certain personal brands that YouTube is a better fit for and some that maybe they can deprioritize it?
Great question. I think the answer to that one is there's kind of two approaches to it. I think it's right for everyone, but the right approach is different for everyone. And so what your business is kind of totally dictate how you should approach making content. But I genuinely think that there is a place for YouTube regardless of your business. And a lot of businesses that we talk to, they haven't done it because no one in their sector has done it. And I just it blows my mind that they don't see that that's an amazing opportunity, because if anyone is looking for that kind of content and you're the only one making it, think of the supply versus the demand. You're going to get all of the traffic, and it's going to be high converting traffic because YouTube has a ton of data on this person. So they showed it to them because they knew they were likely to want it, or they actually sought this stuff out. They searched it themselves. So I genuinely think every business and personal brand should have a YouTube channel. If at the very least you only do it to rank for high intent keywords that would mean a lot to your business. And the amazing thing is that with SEO, it's in the back burner at this point. People aren't even thinking about YouTube SEO, which is so stupid, but people just are so obsessed with the shiny object syndrome that's present on short form, whether it be shorts or over on TikTok, that they're neglecting these videos. And for some businesses, if a search term's only getting 100 searches per month, people don't think that's worth their time. But if that's 100 of your perfect customer, that could be literally transformative for your business from one video you make once and ranks for years. So it's just a totally different value prop that's why we scream YouTube from the rooftops, because it converts.
Yeah. So what's the reason you think people aren't getting into YouTube then? You mentioned people are attached to short form content. What's the reason that they stick to that and more people aren't getting into the YouTube channel game?
Higher barrier to entry. So there's more things that you have to get right. It's a lot more to learn. And also, people let their ego get in the way. They are used to getting, let's say, 1,000 views on an Instagram post, that when they come over to YouTube and it only gets like 5 or 10 for the first month or so, they get discouraged and they quit. They also don't realize that it's unlike every other platform, where it's not even just a content platform, it's really a packaging platform. And that's why our agency grows the way that it does every single month, is because that little bit, the getting people to click from the right title, thumbnail, and concept, is honestly like 90% of the equation. And so almost all of that is done before you even click the record button, which is why most people fail. They sit down and they try to make these videos and they don't structure it in a way that makes sense for their audience. And I've even seen this with some of the most biggest experts we've ever talked to. Because they're so deep in the weeds, they're not speaking in a language that the person who's actually going to buy understands. And I think that's where you find that out from the beginning of research, either doing it yourself or having an agency like mine, like pointing you in the right direction. And that's why most people fail. A lot of them try. They'll make a few videos, get no results, because it is that packaging platform I mentioned. It's very much all or nothing. And a lot more people are on the nothing side, so they just quit and they stick to where they know they can predictably get some views, but those views don't turn into anything they're actually trying to achieve. So it doesn't really make much sense in the long run.
I'm going to speak for my audience here because I know a lot of them face this issue, which is showing up on camera and trying to create content. Now, short form content, 30, 45 seconds, maybe that's doable. But if you're talking like 45 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever, longer form content, the agita, the anxiety gets in about how you're going to be perceived. So, talk to me, like, how do your clients ever face that? Like, oh, I would love to do this, but man, pressing record and talking to a camera scares me. And what do you say to them when they say that?
Definitely a fair point, but my answer should alleviate a lot of that fear, because especially if you're in a niche-based audience, the only people that are going to see it are going to be the people that really want it. And so there's nothing really to fear besides fear itself here, because it's not going to get the million views if your potential audience size is so much smaller. So you're really only talking to your core people. And I think the antidote to long form content is kind of removing the pressure from it. So it's filming content a lot like we're doing right here. So it's a little more free flowing. It's a little more conversational rather than having to be straight to a script. I think a lot of people really struggle with that. Whereas if you have someone like a producer or even someone from your team who can tee you up for questions where you're just having a conversation like I am with Dave here, that can go a long way in getting you the right content, as long as you've done the research beforehand to know what questions to ask in the right words and language that people are looking for and understand. So that's a big part of what we do, is basically, okay, like these are the videos that you think you should make, but here's how you should make them. And we help them actually bring them to life that way. So if you're afraid of creating content, I totally get it. I've been creating content for like 7 or 8 years at this point. And even for me, it's difficult to sit in front of a camera and get a script out smoothly. It's never smooth. So I think the two thing is like make it so that it's a lot less stressful in a conversational environment like this. And also remove the pressure that you're imposing on yourself, thinking that you should be getting this perfect. Every YouTuber that you watch right now films their videos like 100 times. I guarantee you. So what you're seeing is probably take 100.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, even like some of the most quote unquote boring, if you will, topics. I'll watch YouTube videos where the person maybe isn't like that charismatic or entertaining, but the information they know is the only thing I care about. So
yes.
It's better sometimes, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. Like if you're a little bit more charismatic, it'll be a little bit more enjoyable to watch. But all I care about is I have a problem and you're stating that you have the solution. Just give me the solution. That's all I care about.
Dave, you just teed me up for a really important message there. So thank you for that. So the whole thing is that it's all relative to who you're competing against. So a lot of times people come over to YouTube and they think they need to compete with like vloggers or entertainers. Whereas if you're creating for some market where there's literally no other option on YouTube, you could be the most boring person in the world and they're still going to watch you. And so I think that people are a lot more entertaining than they think that they are, and people are a lot more interesting than they think that they are. And you also have the added benefit of it's probably a lot less competitive than you think, especially on YouTube. Almost every market that we help, we go and try to find the people who are on YouTube, and there'll be like hundreds of people from a sector on Instagram and TikTok, and then like 10 of them on YouTube. And even then, there's maybe one or two that are actively posting. So you're just giving yourself such a better opportunity by being in more of a blue ocean over on YouTube. It's changing rapidly. So I think this is really the last year you have to take the jump, but you really, really should.
Yeah. All right. So we're convinced on our ability to do it, why it's important, the opportunity that's there. Let's talk now strategy in terms of step 1, 2, 3, and actually launching it. So what are some of the important things people should be considering? They've made the decision, I want to start. What's kind of the critical next step that they should make sure they're doing prior to just jumping into the deep end?
So for us, we typically are dealing with businesses. So I'm going to focus more on that approach. And so what you really want to do is figure out strongly who your customer is exactly. And I think it's shocking how few people actually have this figured out. A lot of people think they know who their customer is, but until they can actually describe them to me in a very succinct, clear way, you don't really understand. And you also want to figure out who that person is based on their consumption habits. And so I recommend what we do for all of our clients is build out an ideal viewer avatar or a persona to figure out who these people are, where they're hanging out, and also the words that they're using. And in a platform that is a search engine, I can't stress that enough. It's got to be the language that they're using to find them, right? And so then the other exercise that we go through to make this a lot easier is by going through the customer's journey upon every level of awareness that a customer is going to go through, right? So problem aware, product aware, solution aware, and like buy ready essentially is the 4 that we focus on. And so there are different topics that you should take to pull someone from each step of the awareness ladder to ultimately buying from you. And so when you think about it like that, making the videos becomes a lot less scary. And you also realize that each one is playing a role in your evergreen funnel. So you don't attach too much importance to one being like getting a ton of views and viewing that as a success or a failure. A lot of our best performing videos from a monetary perspective have some of the lowest views because it was deliberately meant to be a bottom of funnel tool to get them to convert. And so naturally, you can't expect a video like that to go viral, but it's resulted in hundreds of thousands of dollars for the specific customer that comes to mind because of the specific nature of the video, right? And so if you totally change your relationship to what success looks like, that's how you win on YouTube tremendously. And that's how you also can make a ton of money from not a ton of views. So I would think about really hammering down your customer and then figuring out what are the different things they're asking or talking about during their different levels of awareness to ultimately hopefully buy from you.
Hey, Blueprint fam, if you're enjoying today's episode and finding my guest insights valuable, then you'll definitely want to subscribe to the Personal Brand Blueprint podcast as we drop weekly guest interview episodes just like this one. And on that note, you obviously also see firsthand how powerful being an effective guest like the one you're watching on this episode right now can be at attracting qualified, interested leads directly into your sales funnel. But I know what you're thinking. You want to get into guest podcasting, but starting feels confusing and overwhelming. What equipment do you need? And how do you look and sound great? And how do you turn listeners into leads? I know this because so many of my guests had these exact problems in the past. And that is why I created the Podcast Guest Mastery Blueprint. It's a simple but powerful breakdown on everything you need to look, sound, and convert great as a podcast guest. Everything from how to set up your recording area to what equipment you need to look and sound great on camera and what to say on podcasts to stand out, be memorable, and earn the audience's trust. And then that one key strategy to turn listeners into leads. I'm telling you, this isn't just another checklist. This is a step-by-step blueprint to make sure you look, sound, and present your best on podcasts so you can convert that attention into leads and ultimately new business. I honestly was thinking about selling this for like $97, but I'd rather give access to this guide to my Personal Brand Blueprint podcast audience for free. So if you are ready to become a sought-after podcast guest and use it to generate leads and build your personal brand, and grab your copy of Podcast Guest Mastery Blueprint at davepoly.com/podguestblueprint. You can find the link to that in the show notes below. Again, that's davepoly.com/podguestblueprint and start turning podcast interviews into business. Again, it's completely free for being a loyal listener, so definitely check it out. Cool? All right, let's get back to the conversation. What I love that you said there was initially start with focusing on your client or customer and what their needs are. I think a lot of times, like I said, we go into some of these more media assets that are a bit more, we think, us focused. Am I going to be
Yes.
entertaining? Like, how am I going to sound and look? And are people going to judge me? But what you're saying is start with what are your client or customers' problems and create content that solves those problems at every point in the buyer's journey or the content funnel. And if you're doing that, you're doing it correctly, and you don't have to worry about how do you look. Like, going back to what we said, yeah, it doesn't matter how entertaining you are as long as you're solving problems. And then secondly, you mentioned the kind of fluff metrics of like views and likes and all that. Really sounds like the main metric we're actually looking for is ROI. How many people bought, how many people became a client. And that could mean 5 views equals $100,000, or you can have 100,000 views and $5. Which one do you want? Zach?
That's exactly it. Yeah, you said that really, really well. And that's the battle we were having with people over the past few years. And a lot of people from my internal team kept saying, should we offer short form? Should we focus on short form? And I was seeing the metrics from my own YouTube channel and the channels we were working with, and it just never made sense to me. And it's awesome because people are finally getting to the point that we were at like 3 years ago, seeing that short form traffic is mostly garbage. And they're now coming to that reality and trying to come over to YouTube. And we have 5 or 6 years of a head start of learning all this stuff and understanding how it works. So yes, completely. I want you to shift how you approach what success looks like, figuring out what that is to you, and then realizing that every tool is really like a stock in your investment portfolio. You're looking to build the overall portfolio and what it means for you and your business. And so when you do it like that, every video has a lot more meaning to it. And I love the fact that you said make it all about your customer. As a business owner, that's how you become successful, is you understand them at a deep level and you serve them, right? If you come to YouTube and every video with that approach, it's going to be well received. And I think also I love what you said about the whole focusing on them across the whole thing, because sometimes we make assumptions, especially if we're deep in this content world, about what they're looking for and how they want to consume. And we actually make mistakes because of those assumptions. Like, we've had stuff with channels that are a little more heavy on education, and we put background music in there, and we kept getting comments being like, this background music is super confusing and it's super hard to listen to the person with them, right? It's like little things like that about figuring out how the specific people you're trying to reach want to consume goes a long way. And so the more you know them, the easier that becomes.
So we know what we should be talking about because we're doing that target audience research and understanding the topics throughout the full buyer journey. What are we looking, how do we then go and package this into like a YouTube channel? Like, let's define what a YouTube channel is for people who have like no idea. They've watched YouTube channels, but like what goes into like starting a YouTube channel? What are like the technical steps that we need to actually think about here?
Yeah, so it's really easy. It's only becoming increasingly so. So the first step you have to do is go make a Gmail account, because Google owns YouTube. So if you go make a Gmail account and then you go over to YouTube, you're going to see a very clear and obvious button in the top right that says create a channel. And there are tons of tutorials for this on YouTube as well. I might even have some on YouTube teaching how to do this. And from there, you have a channel. You can create the channel name and the channel handle. So like at whatever you want to name it. And then from that point, it just comes down to verifying the channel. So you have to add a phone number or an email to it, something like that, to post longer videos. But once you have that up and running, it's as simple as uploading a video like you would on any other platform. But the art form to YouTube is the optimization piece. That's really the focal point of our agency. It's figuring out what videos to make. And then once you know the topic to make, how do you package that from a title, a title, a thumbnail, and like the overall concept to get that seen. Because basically what YouTube does is it reads through everything you provide it. So it reads through the YouTube thumbnail, the title, the tags, the description, as well as the video itself to basically determine where to put it. And so you want to give it all the right information and none of the wrong information to get put where you actually want. And that's why YouTube SEO, for anybody who has played around with Google SEO, search engine optimization, it's so much easier on YouTube. I can't even express how much easier it is. Like, I understand YouTube SEO, and so I can get almost any video ranking for my target keyword within the top 4 to 6 rankings on a brand new channel almost every time, because it's very straightforward and there's just way less competition. So how YouTube works is if you learn basic YouTube SEO or have an agency like mine handle it, what it does is it gives you a ranking position of usually between 4 to 6. Right? So when someone types something in, you'll be either the 4th slot, between the 4th and the 6th. And then based on how people react to that video when it's there, dictates whether you go into the abyss and you never get views of that video, or if you climb up and you can potentially get to number 1. And if you get to 1 or 2, that video is going to stay there for months, potentially years. So that's really what we're trying to do. And that's really where the refinement comes in terms of figuring out what you want your YouTube channel to look like, and then figuring out what videos are priorities for me to rank on, to build this ranking authority, to really own this space. Because I can't tell you how much it means if when people are typing in multiple keywords related to the purchase of the product or service that you sell, and they keep seeing your brand or your face, it becomes such an obvious decision to buy from you because they're almost like, why would I buy from anyone else? They're not here, right? And so that just totally changes the conversation. And I say this on almost every sales call that I'm on. When you have a YouTube channel, you no longer have sales calls, you have onboarding calls because they've already made that decision through your YouTube content. You just have to be at the right place at the right time. And we help you do that. And YouTube helps you do that.
I love that last point about how this long form content actually acts as somewhat of like a sales setter, if you will, right? Yeah. And I always say that content is like your best salespeople, and it's working for you 24/7 while you sleep, right?
I use the same line. I love that one.
Yeah. So like, with social content, important. I think social content is for short form social content and such. That's for people to. It's awareness. People get to. You're associating yourself as a thought leader in the industry. It's mostly to help people go, oh, this person seems cool and reasonably smart within this industry. Let me check them out. Go to your profile. Go, oh, wait, they have a YouTube channel. Then start binging your content that way, and now they're sold. I think I had a guest on a couple episodes ago who said the statistic of like it takes about 7 or 9 hours of your potential customer to consume before they are ready to make a purchasing decision. And how many 30-second reels is that going to take in order for them to get 7 hours of content versus maybe 3 or 4 hour-long podcasts, right? So you're just cutting that sales cycle down just by them consuming more content.
And I can't tell you enough how much people will invest time into a serious problem. And so if you're a business owner, you solve a problem of some sort. And so if it's a high pain point problem that you've built your business around, which we all should be doing, people will watch every single video. You'll be shocked. The people that will come and buy from you, they'll have watched every video. And I used to do this. So I should get back to doing this. Whenever we used to get a new client that found me, I would always ask them, what was the video that they watched that made them convert? And it was always my lowest performing videos in terms of overall views, almost every single time. And so I can't stress that enough. And as someone who has spent a lot of money on a surgery that I picked the surgeon through YouTube, I watched literally every video on their channel, right? And so I think so many times we make the mistake of thinking, why would someone watch this? If they have the pain point and this is potentially a solution to their problem, they're going to put in the time, especially if they're going to buy from you, right? And so I think that is totally true. You can build that relationship. The whole know, like, and trust factor happens on YouTube so much more because of the long content lifespan, but also because of the sunk cost of making the decision themselves, right? Because you consciously decided to watch this content, whether YouTube threw it in your face or you searched it out yourself, either way, you clicked it, right? Like, and that's not like any other platform. On every other platform, it's just thrown in front of your face completely, and you really didn't have a say. Your only say is, do I stay or do I go? So that extra layer of a conscious choice also makes a huge difference in terms of how they're anchored, right? Like they're paying attention way more.
Now, you mentioned earlier about the packaging of a video and the elements towards that. What are the strategies that we should be thinking about or that your agency implements to help a video perform its best for its intended purpose?
It's the hardest thing on social media, period, of framing that concept. But the good news for you, if you are new, most people that we have on that are new clients or that we're consulting with, we do advise them to focus on search content for their business first. And luckily, that stuff is very straightforward. To win on, say, browse or suggested, which are the other traffic areas on YouTube, so which would be the homepage or the sidebar when you're watching a different video, those areas take a lot more psychology to really understand what makes people like tick and what makes them motivated to do something. But for search-based content, you really want to make it as straightforward as possible. You basically want to know the language that someone's using, use that in your title, write the title for a human being, and then essentially have the thumbnail just reaffirming that they're in the right place, right? So you basically just want to double down that, yes, you're going to get what you searched for. This video is going to tell you that. The thumbnail makes it obvious. And then you reiterate that with very specific and consistent description and tags for the video. Just make it as obvious as possible. A big mistake that I see people making is that they throw in a lot of unrelated stuff into the video, trying to basically like ride a trend. Whereas you want to be as specific as possible for your videos that you're trying to rank with in search. So an example that I used to give all the time was that Gary Vee was very big in the entrepreneurship community. And I used to see a lot of the times that other creators that were trying to be entrepreneurship-based content creators would throw in like hashtag Gary Vee into their videos. And that's genuinely doing nothing for you. If anything, it's hurting you. Because now YouTube's like, wait, is this video Gary Vee? Is it not? It's come a long way with their AI of scanning through the video itself to understand relevancy. But on a video where there's not a lot of traffic, which is what most search-based videos will be, the packaging, the metadata, the title, tags, thumbnails, description, it matters a lot more. So basically, YouTube's grown to a point of sophistication now where if there's enough traffic, what YouTube tries to determine is the intent behind the search. So basically, not what are the words that someone's typing, but what do they want to find by typing in those words. But they can only make that decision or know that if there's enough data to confidently say it. But for most of the people listening to this show, you're probably in a niche that's not massive, so they won't have enough data to know the intent behind the search. So it's a lot more literal, which is actually great for you because it makes it easier.
Now, you said that YouTube is kind of combing through the video itself.
Yes.
Is that down to like it's the transcription and it's reading what's being said? Can it even somehow visually understand what's going on in the video too? Like, what's the depth of it being able to understand what is in your video in order to support that SEO side of things?
Great question. So it's definitely scanning through what's being said. That's been around for a while. And my understanding is it's also scanning through the video itself to make decisions and connections as well. So definitely what you're saying matters. So that's also why it's a good practice to make sure that you're including the words that you're trying to rank for in the video. That should happen naturally as you're talking about the subject. But that's why it's a good idea, is because it's actually scanning through to pick up on those words to associate relevancy to the topic. So definitely what you're saying is being tracked. And I'm almost certain the video is as well.
When we're prepping for, or for your clients, when you're prepping for a video, how should we be formatting this video for it to perform at its best in terms of what we're talking about? I mean, a big thing with social content is like the hook, right? And I know YouTube's no different. So what are some of the things that we should be incorporating into our videos to not just ensure we're providing value, but also from like a psychological standpoint, we're still able to get the performance that we want?
This is something that's so nuanced, and one of the biggest things that our coaching helps people with is that every video is different. And so you want to understand, why does someone want to watch this specific video, and what would be the ideal format to present this, right? Like sometimes you don't need a hook for a video whatsoever, because if people sought out for a very specific problem, you should just get right into it. So many videos get absolutely killed because they have these long intros that people don't care to listen to, because they already know exactly what they're looking for and they want it now. And so you're spending all this time and effort trying to get the perfect hook when the hook was just the video itself. You just got to give them what they want. And you'll actually see this when you go across and find like a tutorial channel that just gets right into it because it's a very specific thing. You don't need to hook them. They already are hooked. They had the problem. They're looking for the solution. You'll see comments all the time being like, thank you, someone who just got right into it. So one of the biggest low-hanging fruits that you could grab to make your content way better is to figure out what is the reason someone is looking for this video, how are they finding it, and what do they want in terms of delivery of this information. Do you even need a hook in how we've come to know it as? For a lot of videos that are search-based, you really, really don't. You should just get into it and deliver what they're there for.
Now, for those who maybe have attempted to do this on their own, they didn't utilize a service like yours and they went and launched a YouTube channel. Maybe they got 10, 15, 20 videos in. And maybe then they come to you. What's typically the mistakes that you've seen them make that are like, all right, priority number one, this is our typical step in fixing what you're already doing?
Almost all of it is the packaging of the content, right? So it's taking the topics that you want to cover and making them YouTube friendly or your audience friendly in terms of the title that you're using, the thumbnail, and the overall like framing of that concept. But the awesome thing about YouTube is if you do fall into that situation is that unlike any other platform, YouTube doesn't give up on videos. This was a quote directly from their head of the product, I believe it was, where they said that YouTube doesn't give up on video, so neither should you. So one of the features that we actually offer within our agency is going back and looking for opportunities that we feel the video didn't perform the way that the quality should have brought us in terms of performance. And so we'll actually go and swap the title or swap the thumbnail. And little tweaks like that, because YouTube's such a data machine, the smallest changes in data can make a world of a difference, right? Because YouTube is a for-profit business. And so this kind of usually makes it clear to people. Every time YouTube shows someone a video, it's a financial risk to them, right? And so if they have the data that says that video A is even 1% safer than video B for a certain type of audience, they're going to show almost everyone video A. And so that's why these tiny little changes in terms of structuring the content the right way for who you're trying to reach makes a world of a difference, because YouTube has so much data. So the smallest tweaks can make almost all of the difference. I use the term a lot that YouTube's an all or nothing platform because of that exact reason. If you're good at packaging content and concepts, you're going to win, even if your content's not filmed the best. That's the thing. I think way too much time is spent on the stuff that doesn't actually matter. Like, you don't need a world-class editor on YouTube to blow up. You really don't, especially if you're an education creator or you're doing it for a business. The video editing is one of the least important parts. As long as it flows, which is cuts that you could probably do yourself, it's actually not that important. The packaging of the concept, figuring out what video to make, how to make a title and thumbnail for that video, and then deliver that information, that's 95% of the equation.
Yeah, I'd like to get your thoughts on that last part. It seems that there's a new wave of visual style. You're seeing it more in short form. Now I think it's making its way more to long form on YouTube, of kind of the lo-fi edit styles. Like, we had the boom of everyone's now on YouTube, and now everyone needs to stand out by being super highly produced. And now it feels as though it's a little bit more like, let's just be in the same room together metaphorically and just have a frank conversation without the super cuts and all that kind of stuff. What are you seeing when it comes to like the production value that needs to go into content, and does it affect the results? And then maybe is there a trend that you're seeing that we're going to see across 2025?
I'm seeing that happen a lot. I think it's almost happening accidentally, as people are putting out videos with way less effort into the stuff that they thought that mattered, and seeing they're getting the same, if not better, performance. And so I think that people are finally realizing that most of your time should be put into framing the concept, the title, the thumbnail, and then also delivering the content in the best format. More time should be put into structuring how you're going to deliver this information or this entertainment than it should be in terms of editing it in most cases, right? Because great editing can't make a bad story good. It can make a good story better, but it can't solve something that's bad. And so I think people are finally putting areas into the places that actually matter, which is going to be the concept of itself, and then structuring, like, how can I actually deliver this in an efficient way? And so sometimes people do want you to go really in depth, right? Like, we got taught for so long that it needs to be like 60 seconds or less, otherwise people won't pay attention. The people that care will give you that time, and sometimes they want it, right? And so if you're the only one who's going into the depth that's needed to solve a problem, then you're going to get rewarded for that. And so that's why the advice that I always give for how long should videos be is as long as it needs to be, but not longer, right? And so in some situations, that might mean it needs to be a 3-hour video. If you know in your heart of hearts that that's how long the video should be, that's exactly how long it should be. And you'll know if there's tons of fluff that doesn't need to be there. But if it needs to be 3 hours, the video should be 3 hours. Especially if you go and see the other videos you're competing with, and you can visibly see that this video needs to be way longer, but something that's like a minute is ranking number 1. That's not necessarily that doesn't mean that that's what you should do. It just means that that's YouTube's best option right now. And so that's usually what we try to do, is go find low-hanging fruit within niches of underserved areas that we think we could come in and provide a way better product and get ranking number 1 for a high-intent keyword very quickly.
Now, the goal here, obviously, is to get some sort of ROI at the end of the day. You need to kind of prove that it's worth investing into or continue to invest into. What are the ways that we are converting eyeballs into new clients and sales? Is that a call to action at the end of the video? Are people just organically doing it themselves? How are you seeing the best way to drive that that conversion after the view?
Super critical. If you don't have a plan for the traffic, you're planning to fail, right? And so you have to figure out, what am I ultimately trying to achieve? And then what is the best way to do that? If you've been a business that's been existing for a while, you should have a good idea as to what kind of flow or next step works best for you. So if that's like a personal call with somebody, if that's getting them on your email list, most of the clients that we deal with have some sort of idea in terms of how their funnel best operates. And if you don't, it's more of a discovery phase of figuring that out. But YouTube converts well for every kind of thing that you could want it to achieve. So if you want people on your email list, then make sure there's a decent lead magnet and get them over there. If you have a solid lead magnet and it's in a concentrated video, it's going to get a ton of people signing up for it. We get people to email lists at a crazy high clip. If it's to enter a discovery call, have the link there. And also make sure it's easy and to understand and also easy to access all of the ways where people can buy from you. Because even your previous catalog of content, people do go through and look at it. And so you want to make sure that whenever they're most motivated to buy, they can quickly access the link. So whatever important links that you have for people to enter your world and become a customer, make sure they're easily accessible across every piece of content, even if you didn't mention it in that video, because someone may have watched it like 2 or 3 videos ago, but then on a different video that's not totally related to that, they may have made that decision saying, okay, I'm ready to buy. And if that link's not there, that little bit of friction can sometimes be enough for them to make a different decision. So you want to make all of that as simple as possible and easy to find, but optimize towards whatever makes the most sense for your business. That's why there's not one simple answer there, because people's sales cycles are usually very different.
For someone who's just starting the channel, which is kind of the theme we're talking about today, and they post their first video, how long, I know there's no magic number, but typically, like, how long should we expect in terms of number of videos published or months or whatnot? When can we see some sort of result that can make us go, okay, this is worth it on average?
So that's going to come down to how much you know coming into this and the strategy that you're doing, right? Because not all opportunities are created equally. And so if you found the right opportunity at the right time, we've had channels that have started growing within weeks, right? And then sometimes it can take months. We operate on 3-month minimums for new channels that we take on at the very least, because we've usually found that, especially for a new channel, it takes at least that much time for the creator to get comfortable, and then also to build out a catalog of content to really build authority within a niche and start getting ranking pretty easily. But it can really range. If you meet that sweet spot of a low supply, high demand opportunity, and you make that video, you can get growing very, very quickly. And so that's with search, but that also happens within browse and suggested all the time as well. Like if you ever see someone who gets really viral really quickly, it's because they filled that gap, right? There was low supply for something, but a really high demand. And so that happens all the time. But for a business owner, you can predictably do it by going after the topics that you know your customers are looking for. So I think it'll be fast. It can be faster than people think, but it's a lot harder than people think to do it right. And you either do it right or you do it wrong. There's very little in between when it comes to YouTube. And so I think that's the biggest thing. So I'd say low end, a few weeks, but for you, if you're sticking to this, I want you to commit to like a video a week or a video every other week for at least 4 to 6 month minimum. And if you've not done that and try to refine each video, making it better, then you didn't really try YouTube correctly. And if you give me that 6 months and you do it a video a week for 6 months and you haven't gotten any results, send me a DM and I'll tell you what you're doing wrong, because you will get results if you do it well for 6 months.
Now, I don't know if you deal with this side of the equation, but a strategy that I'm noticing lately that I think I'm going to implement myself, because it's happened to me twice over the last week, is using a YouTube video, a long form YouTube video where it's almost like a mini masterclass on a specific topic, or a full case study breakdown or something like that, as the lead magnet. And you're going into it with, here's my full, on the front end, the lead magnet is, the landing page is like full step-by-step guide on how I did XYZ to achieve client desired goal. And you're kind of going into it. I'm going into it like, oh, I'll download this what I assume like a PDF or like whatever, something that's exclusive, that's behind a paywall, or not a paywall, but like behind, in some link no one has access to. And so I'm giving them my information, and then really all they're doing is just pushing me over to a YouTube channel that's already publicly available. And it's a little bit like, all right, you got me there. But I think it's smart though, because it's like, it's an hour-long video. You invested a lot of your time into it. It's very in-depth and it's valuable. Why not use that as a lead magnet? So I don't know if that's an element that you support or part of the strategy that you support, but what are your thoughts, I guess, towards, you have these assets already that you're investing into. So even if they're not getting a ton of views, you can still get leads off of them because you can use it as a lead magnet.
Yeah, I've been seeing that happening more and more. We've been doing it as well. I don't see any problem with it because it solves one of the biggest problems that YouTube does have. Sometimes the most valuable videos that you could make, you can't structure it in a way from a packaging perspective where the people who need it most would know to click it, right? And so that's where you could get them from another piece of content, give them more context, and then they're now ready to go, right? Because sometimes people need like a minute or a minute and a half of context to understand why they need this longer video or why they need the subject matter from that longer video. And so you're kind of solving that. And because I used to have one of the biggest complaints with YouTube was that some of the most valuable videos out there will never get views because not enough people know that they should be watching them. And so this is kind of a clever way to solve that problem. So I think that can be a great way to get more life out of a video that you're making, especially if you're putting a lot of effort into it. Why not make it a lead magnet? And because it still is delivering upon what a lead magnet should be, right? Because they probably wouldn't have found this video otherwise. And if it is really valuable and transformative for them, it's still achieving the same purpose. So I don't think that's shady. I think that's a solid strategy, to be honest. I think more and more people are going to do it. People will probably go numb to it as people do start to do it too much. But right now, why not run for it?
Yeah, I think the only downside would be people just being hesitant to just give their information instead of like, let me just go find their YouTube channel and see if this is going to end up being so maybe in the future, there's ways to package the whole thing where it's like you get the YouTube video and, put as a strategy for your personal brand, maybe put the YouTube video into an AI tool and have it like summarize the YouTube video and there's a separate PDF you can provide or something like that.
Totally. Yeah. Some additional downloadable, or you could even make the video unlisted if you really wanted to make it exclusive. So they actually would need to get the link from somebody to access it. So there's tons of different ways you can get creative with it. I think that that's a really good idea too, just adding in some additional resource to make the video even more valuable.
Right. So can you walk us through an example of a client that you've had that you think is like the prime example of what you're able to provide your clients?
That's a really good question. So I'd say our three biggest client sectors are going to be your high ticket service providers, your software companies, and then your podcasts. And I have one for each that comes to mind. So I'll try to provide one that's more business focused. So I'll give a surgeon. So actually the surgeon that I was mentioning throughout this video, we actually ended up getting him as a client because when I was there getting my surgery, I explained to him how I found him and how he could be getting way more people in there if he were able to broaden the scope a little bit and do the things we've talked about in this channel or in this episode. And we actually went and did that. We sat down with him and did basically 6, maybe even a year worth of content in like a 2-week filming session, a few day filming session. And then we are now like 8. He's been on YouTube for like 7 or 8 years, and we are 8 of his top 10 performing videos of all time. So it really goes to show the kind of impact that small tweaks can make. And so he was doing it and he was doing it okay, but a little bit of strategy took it over the top. And in something like that, he's an out of, I don't know the proper words in the States because I'm Canadian, but he's out of network doctor. Is that the proper term?
Yeah, healthcare is a tough conversation for us to have, huh? Yeah, it's out of network. So yeah, if you have your plan, there's only certain doctors that'll take your plan.
Cool. So he was an out-of-network doctor who charged a ton of money. So the leads for him mean a crazy amount of money. And so we have generated for him millions of dollars in revenue from work that we did for him within like 6 months. And so we work with them every so often in terms of adjusting things and improving their strategy moving forward. But that's the kind of impact that you can see, especially for someone in the surgeon's world, right? Like a lot of surgeons that we've tried to show what we've done for him, surgeons are just like so skeptical because they don't think that it makes sense to be on YouTube. But then this whole really successful multi-million-dollar a year practice was built almost entirely because of YouTube, right? Like that's why he's a market leader. And so it's really funny that people don't want money, but for whatever reason, that's the one issue that I see for people that are afraid. So if you're in a sector where you think it doesn't make sense to be on YouTube, it may only not make sense right now because nobody has done it. And that is more of a reason why you should do it than to not.
So for those listening who are interested in finally taking that leap and working with your company, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you and learn more information?
For sure. So if you want to reach out to me directly, you can access me over on Instagram, which is at Ben Leavitt _, or you can email me if you're more of an email person which is at ben@bunnymedia.co. Or if you just go over to our website, by the time this is live, our new website is probably going to be launched. So if you can go over there, there's going to be case studies of some of the things that I've talked about in this video, so you can see what we've actually done for some of our clients. And if you reach out to us, we can book a call with you to hopefully turn your goals into a reality.
Love it. Any last words for us?
I think it's just to take advantage of the opportunity that's there now. A lot of people that aren't on YouTube, it's because they think that it's too late. And that is not true at all right now. It's still very easy for new or small channels to grow. But I don't know if that's still going to be the case a year from now. And so I don't want you to look back on this episode thinking, oh, I should have listened to Ben and Dave and I should have taken the leap. So whether it's doing it by yourself or doing it with an agency, make this a decision, because I've seen the traffic that can come from YouTube be transformative from a financial perspective, but also an authority standpoint. people respect a YouTube audience more than any other platform. It's very strange, but they really, really do. I've had speaking engagements where there were creators that had like TikToks or Instagram followings that were way bigger than me, and like I was the main speaker because I was the YouTube guy, right? And so it just holds a different level of a prestige or whatever word you want to attach to it. So don't even just think in terms of the financial point. It can also be transformative in terms of brand and status as well. So definitely YouTube's a big deal, and this is the year to do it.
Love it. Thank you, Ben, for being on today's episode of Personal Brand Blueprint and teaching us how to launch a channel of our own and the strategies we can implement into that channel in order for it to be successful. To learn more about how to launch and grow your personal brand, check out me, Dave Polykoff, on LinkedIn, as well as Ben. Follow the Personal Brand Blueprint podcast and check out davepolykoff.com for ways that we can work together one-on-one. Thanks, and check you out on the next episode of Personal Brand Blueprint. Today, we learned about my guest's origin story, unique methods, and credibility. If you want to see me break down how today's guest can use those tools within the Personal Brand Blueprint strategy to attract, convince, and convert new qualified leads so you can do the same for your business, then check out this episode here. Or if you want to continue to hear more incredible personal branding origin stories and learn more valuable personal branding skills from my awesome guests, then check out the full playlist of interviews here.